Hi, I'm Cole Hatter, and you're watching 7 Minutes of Wisdom. So today we're going to be talking about the Thrive Quadrant. What I have found in my season of business, having made money, then having lost it all, and having made it back and 10 times more, is that there's definitely a correlation between happiness and access to capital. People say money can't buy happiness. I disagree, and I'm going to show you how in these next 6 minutes and 39 seconds exactly how to do that. So what we've developed is what's called the Thrive Quadrants. And on this vertical axis, this right here is our profit line. So we'll go ahead and write profits. This can also become income. This can be called whatever you want. This axis right here, the horizontal axis, this is your purpose. And my writing's terrible and I apologize. So this can be income and impact. This can be profits and purpose, whatever you want. So let's check this out. Up here on the top left, as you can see here on the profit or on the income gradient, you're high income, but as far as the purpose gradient, you're low purpose. And what we call this is the earning quadrant. We'll put an E there. This is the earning quadrant. And unfortunately, this is where the world tells you that you're going to be happy. The more money you make, the more stuff you can buy, the happier you'll ever be. But the question is, then how come every single person with money isn't happy? The reality is having money is great, but people with money are happy, people without money are happy. People with money are sad. People without money are sad. So it's not just the money. What we like to talk about is that income or money, it's a utility, it's a vehicle, it's currency to exchange for whatever you want. And some of the things you can exchange it for will buy happiness. So high income, low purpose, you're in the earning quadrant. And again, if you self-identify in any of these four quadrants and you're any of these three here and not necessarily the thriving quadrant, which we'll get to in a second, that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. The whole world tells you this is where you want to be. This is what TV ads tell you. This is what Hollywood tells you. This is what other successful people tell you. This is keeping up with the Joneses, because once you make $1 million, someone else is making 2. Once you're making 20 million, someone else is making 100. This is chasing the wind, and this can also cause a lot of depression. Now let's go to the bottom left quadrant. As you can see, this is now low profits and still low purpose. We call this the survival quadrant. Now, again, these aren't bad people. These aren't lazy people. This, statistically in America, which is where I live, is where the majority of Americans live. It's called paycheck to paycheck. Can be amazing people. And one thing I'd like to do is pause right now and say that your net worth has nothing to do with your human worth. I know amazing people who have no money. And I know really crappy people who have a lot, and the exact opposite. But what we've found is that the more money you have, the more options you have. So if you are in the surviving quadrant, you're by no means a bad person at all. But you're limited on income and you're limited on purpose, because for a lot of people in the surviving quadrant, every minute is about trying to pay bills. You've got 2 jobs. Maybe your spouse has 2 jobs, and it's what they call the rat race. You're working your butt off just to pay for stuff somebody told you you'd be happy if you had. So again, survival quadrant, just based on statistics and the U.S. Census Bureau and where I live, this is by far where the majority of people are. Now, if you go to the right, bottom right quadrant, you're now purpose, but still low profits. We call this the giving quadrant, and this is churches, this is nonprofits, this is humanitarian organizations. And if you look at any nonprofit or church, their number one function, or in their top 3 functions, is fundraising, because they don't actually generate income. They have to raise funds. This is the Red Cross, this is the church that you're a member of, all those organizations. Again, fantastic place to be, because your whole life, your 9 to 5 in a church or in a nonprofit, is impacting and changing the world. But every church and nonprofit needs pretty much these people right here to be funding it. Tithing at church, donating to a 501c3 organization. Again, they're not financially self-sustained. They live off of people being generous, people giving, usually, that have the money to do so. And then what we found is that if you can be high purpose and high profits and get to the top right, this is what we call the thriving quadrant. We'll just say thrive. To thrive, just what my shirt says here, it means that you're making a ton of money and giving back in some way. And I argue with anyone out there that this is where happiness can be found. Not fulfillment like with spouse, children, all that stuff. I'm talking about contribution, right? Because you can be in the surviving quadrant, be completely fulfilled with your children, your wife, and all that. So this isn't a scale of whether you're happy or not. But the cliche, money doesn't buy happiness, I disagree. If you're in a financial position to be able to give, but while you're making money, you're making a difference. So you're high profits, high purpose, you are thriving, you're in the thriving quadrant. Some examples of business models that fit into the thriving quadrant would be like Tom's Shoes. That's probably the most famous example of a company that is high profits. Blake Makowski, who founded Tom's, worth over $300 million. So in the top, or right here on the profits in the top, making a ton of money. But then as far as purpose, if you don't know the business model of Tom's Shoes, if you've never heard of them, look into them. For every pair of shoes they sell, they give a pair away. So they're not a nonprofit. I've actually participated with nonprofits that do shoe drives, right? Your church, everyone donates shoes. We take them down to Mexico. I live in Southern California, so a lot of the trips I've done is just cruising down to Mexico, and we give shoes away. Fantastic that my church organized that and relied on the rest of us to bring shoes and donate. But what if you just started a business that made hundreds of millions of dollars like Tom's Shoes while giving a pair away? That's a big example. Another friend of mine started a company called Sevenly. For every product they sell, they give $7 away. And so there's a lot of the mechanics behind the business of that. That's what we teach at my event called Thrive. But in 7 minutes, because the clock stopped ticking, so I don't know how much time I have left, these are the quadrants. Quick recap: high income, low purpose. That's where the world tells you you're going to be happy, but now all you have is just stuff and dollars in your bank account. If you can somehow make that money and make that affluence make a difference, you're in the financial position to give back at the same time. And I argue that's where happiness is found. There's our 7 minutes.